Good evening. Tonight's Committee of Adjustment hearing is being held by video conference and live streaming video on the town's live stream webpage at oakville.ca. This is a hearing to consider applications for minor variance and consents held under the authority of the Planning Act. Please keep in mind the intent of this process is to review the application that is before the committee, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may exist between the town, individuals, or organizations. If a request for a deferral is made and the committee grants such a deferral, the applicant or authorized agent must contact the Secretary Treasurer to schedule a new hearing date. In order to conduct an effective and efficient electronic hearing, we have adopted the following process. If you are watching the live stream of this hearing on oakville.ca, and if you wish to speak to an item on the agenda, you can call 905-815-6095. Again, that's 905-815-6095. The phone number is also posted on your screen below the live stream at oakville.ca. Staff will be standing by to take your call. When you call in, staff will ask your name, item number you wish to address, and your telephone number. Further instructions will be provided for you to call back to join the video conference. When the chair or committee polls for interested parties, press *6 to unmute yourself. The applicant or agent will be given the opportunity to briefly explain to the committee the basis of the application and answer any questions that may arise. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for a presentation. You'll need to state your full name and address for the record. Any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All delegations must also state their full name and address for the record. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided to make your presentation. All remarks and questions are to be directed to the chair. Any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. The applicant or agent will then be provided with a further 5 minutes to respond to the comments made by any interested parties and answer any questions from the committee. If the applicant or agent has any concerns found in the staff report, particularly with the proposed conditions, this is your opportunity to advise us. The matter will then be taken into committee for a decision. This will mark the end of the discussion. Any person desiring a notice of decision for an application must provide a written request, preferably through email, to the Secretary Treasurer. Written notice of the committee's decision will be mailed not later than 10 days for minor variance and 15 days for consents to the applicant and or agent and any other person who filed a written request for such notice. The last day to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal will be noted on the decision. Only the applicant, specified persons, or public bodies may appeal the committee's decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. In November 2022, Bill 23 legislation, the More Homes Built Faster Act, amended the Planning Act to remove appeal rights for members of the public. If no appeal is received within the prescribed time frame, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding. Secretary Treasurer will then notify the applicant and anyone who received a copy of the decision through written correspondence. People participating in this hearing are to be courteous to and respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and the other people participating in the electronic hearing. Tonight's electronic hearing is being video recorded and available for future viewing at oakville.ca. Thank you.
Okay, we're just going to pause for a moment for Mr. Hardcastle. He's just trying to enter back into the meeting. I'll let you know. It'll just take a moment, hopefully. Okay, I'm just going to give it a few more minutes. If you still can't connect, we can move forward. We'll still have quorum. We'll move forward, and then if he's able to connect, he can join us at that time. So I'm just going to give him a few more minutes. I think he's just trying to reboot his computer. Thank you for your patience. Okay, while he's still trying, we're going to move on with the meeting as we still have quorum.
Okay, thank you. We have regrets tonight from Ms. McHale, hopefully not from Mr. Hardcastle as well. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? I see none. Madam Secretary Treasurer, are there any requests for withdrawal or deferral tonight?
Okay, I do see some hands up, and I'll just move them into the meeting.
Okay,
Okay.
Mr. Van Boolen. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Curtis Van Kulen, and I'm here to request a deferral for CAV A118 2023 at 251 Woodale Avenue. We would like to request this deferral to work with planning staff to revise the design to better suit the Town of Oakville's residential guidelines, as well as the planning staff directive.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, all in favor of the deferral? Okay, your application is deferred. You'll see the Secretary Treasurer when it's time to come back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Good evening.
Good evening. Evening, Ms. Matviva.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm here tonight on behalf of the owner of 1067 John Laird Circle. This is application CAVA/119/2023. Here to request a deferral for the opportunity to further work with staff and address the concerns.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, any questions? All those in favor of deferring this application? Okay, your application has been deferred. Again, you'll see the Secretary Treasurer when you're ready to come back.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you. Madam Secretary Treasurer, are there any more?
Yes, I'm just moving one more person into the meeting.
Thank you.
I've moved Kara Josie into the meeting.
Yeah, good evening. You'll have to unmute yourself.
I'm sorry about that. My name is Kara Josie of Ben Homes, and I'm requesting deferral for the property 1406 Acton Crescent, and that's number CAVA032/2023. We just have one more variance that we need to work through with the planning department before proceeding.
Okay, thank you. Any members, any questions? All those in favor of the deferral? That application is deferred, and you'll see the Secretary Treasurer when you're ready to come back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Welcome back, Mr. Hardcastle.
I was going to say, welcome back, Mr. Hardcastle.
Mr. Hardcastle, I will ask if you have any pecuniary interest to declare tonight, as you missed that part.
Mr. Chairman, no, I do not.
Okay, thank you. Madam Secretary Treasurer, are we done with deferrals?
Yes, I see no more hands raised, so it doesn't look like there's any more deferrals.
Okay,
then we will proceed with.
Mr. Chairman, may I interrupt for a quick moment just to confirm the matters that were deferred while I was on my technical challenge?
Item 6.3 Woodale Avenue, 6.4 John Laird Circle, and 6.8 Acton Crescent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We will proceed with CAVA 116/2023, 2281 Saddle Creek Crescent.
If they could raise their hand if they'd like to be moved into the meeting to speak. There should be a function where you can raise your hand if you'd like to be moved into the meeting to speak, if you're the applicant or agent for this application. Okay, I'm moving Shaitan Dalal into the meeting and back in.
Okay, I see them now. Good evening. Mr. Dalal, you're listed as the agent?
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Am I audible now?
Yes, you're on now.
Yes, sir. I'm the authorized agent to represent 2281 Saddle Creek Crescent, application number CAV A1162023. We are requesting for the following variance to permit the minimum number of parking spaces required on the lot for townhouse dwelling and accessory dwelling to be 2-car parking space, whereas bylaw require it to be 3-car parking space, and we also agree with the staff recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, any question of the applicant? Mr. Dickey. You'll have to unmute yourself, Mr. Dickey.
Okay,
There we go.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering, it doesn't say too much about this apartment. Is it gonna like be a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom, have a kitchen, dining room, or just how big is it going to be?
It's a 2-bedroom apartment with a kitchen and 1 washroom.
2-bedroom apartment. Is it not possible to provide a parking space in the front lawn or off the flankage street? In this case?
No, we do not have much of the space to do the driveway winding there, sir.
What about off the flankage street, off of Fairmount?
No, I don't think so. I checked it with the zoning staff and didn't got any like solution for that.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Mr. Dickey, another one.
Yeah, to the town planner. Are there other instances in this neighborhood where this situation has come up and the town has either agreed with or opposed this exemption from providing a 3rd parking space?
Through you, Chair, to the committee member Dickey. I'm not aware of any other applications to the Committee of Adjustment in this immediate neighborhood to permit a reduced parking rate for these townhouse dwelling units. To my knowledge, this is the first one that I've dealt with, and the first one in the immediate area. Just to clarify the point too, in terms of Fairmount Drive, it is a no on-street parking along that sort of flankage road.
Yeah, that was another question. In the planning report, it seemed to indicate, that seemed to be mentioned. And it almost was mentioned if that was a point in favor of allowing situation, like approving this variance. Maybe I didn't interpret that right, but if that is, why is that a point in that favor? You understand my question?
Yeah, through you, Chair, to Committee Dickey, I was just providing all of the information that I could about the immediate area and the surrounding context for your decision-making process.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood what you were getting at there. Is there, back to you, to the town planner. Has there been any studies that you're aware of, not necessarily in Oakville or anything, just to get a general idea to say, where you have a detached house, or in this case, a street townhouse, if I terminology I would use, and you put in a 3rd unit, like, a second unit, I should say. How many cars people actually need in that situation? The owner's agent had just said it's a 2-bedroom, not a 1-bedroom unit. It's not like you're over by Sheridan College where you might expect a college student to be using that basement apartment and most likely might not have a car. But my thought is trying to assess the likelihood that somebody living in that basement apartment would actually have a car. Like, just asking if you've ever heard of anything. I know it's a big question, but if you ever heard of a survey of that, then.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, to committee member Dickey, I haven't heard of a recent survey, at least in our neck of the woods, regarding parking and accessory dwelling units. I will say I can't make presumptions about who might live in it, but the level of connectivity for public and active transportation in the immediate area is part of the rationale from planning staff.
Mr. Westerhoff, if I can continue Mr. Dickey's line of questioning, and I guess I'll say where I think Mr. Dickey was going. I'm not sure this is a minor variance as much as a zoning bylaw amendment. And I appreciate that we, indicate that committee of adjustment decisions don't set precedents, but as I read the staff report, the assumption is that as long as you're within a 5-minute walk of a bus stop near a bike path or a trail, which would apply to pretty much any townhouse in Oakville, you're not going to have a car, and therefore you don't need a third parking space. So I'm struggling with calling this a minor variance. I don't see how, if the committee were to approve this, if any other applicant came with an accessory unit, which are now, as you know, allowed under the Planning Act, and as long as they're within 5 minutes of a bus stop, the committee would have to, on the same rationale as in this staff report, would have to approve it. And that to me seems, more of the town needs to look at their zoning bylaw and not deal with these through minor variances, because I think your rationale would apply to almost any applicant coming before the committee. So I'm not sure if staff looked at the difference when this application was being reviewed. Perhaps you could shed some light.
To you, Chair, we did do a thorough review of the application itself, and the staff comments are drafted purely on a site-specific basis. So I can't speak to the generality of any other townhouse, and it's, whether or not every house is within a 5-minute walk to a bus stop. I think the appropriateness here when it comes to the proposed reduction is certainly in line with the subject land's proximity to major bus stop stations, and then the network of trails themselves. So we didn't necessarily discuss on whether this would be best left for an amendment or a minor variance, but it is in our opinion that a minor variance this is appropriate for this process.
And in looking at this neighborhood, and as Mr. Dickey indicated, and you indicated in your staff report, there's areas where parking isn't allowed. I myself saw numerous vehicles parallel parked in the boulevard section of the driveway, indicating to me that there's already a parking issue in this neighborhood. And again, unless I'm misinterpreting it, staff's assumption is the residents of this unit will not have a car. But if they do, isn't that just going to add to what appears to be already an existing issue?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's not describe whether or not one parking space will be allotted to the principal dwelling unit and one parking space to the accessory dwelling unit. It's simply a reduction in the total requirement. You know, there's a lot of different situations when it comes to accessory apartments, rentals. It could be family, it could be students like you've mentioned that are going to share it in and take the bus or whatever it might be. So I think without, you know, I can't make presumptions on who might be there and whether or not they would even have a license or drive a car.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for either the applicant or staff? Ms. Yu? You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think my question is to both the planner, the town planner, and the applicant. So it seems like this townhouse has been built and has been occupied for a few years. So when prior to the construction of this townhouse, if the reduction of the parking space it was predicted, why the request wasn't made at that time? What triggers this request right now at this timing? This is the first question, and the question two is if is a building permit required to reduce the parking space? Well, not to my knowledge, is not part of the building permit process, right? The second question is to the town planner. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, I will answer that second part. So in the comments, we discuss the issuance of a permit, and that would be for the accessory dwelling unit in the basement. So if, you know, if an accessory dwelling unit permit is not issued and that development does not take place, then the parking reduction would not apply. That is the intent of that condition.
And I suspect maybe Mr. Dalal could answer with the first question. It's probably coming out now because they applied for a building permit, and in the zoning compliance check, they've identified this variance.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to answer the question first, the owner was not originally expecting the need for an accessory apartment in the basement. However, due to the mortgage rate hike and everything is going high, so the owner recently suspected the need of having a basement apartment so that he can rent it out to like a couple, like one or two of the students, so that they can help the student as well in the close proximity of the college area as well as his mortgage needs.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we'll close the discussion and I'll look for a motion on this matter.
Just for one moment, can you just,
Oh,
I believe.
sorry, I forgot to ask if anybody called in.
No, no one has called in, but I just would, if you could please read out that we did receive an email of opposition into the record, that would be great. But there is no other, I don't see anybody hands raised to speak to this application.
Yes, we do have an email of opposition from Angie and Christopher DeCiso. Nobody's called in to speak, so I will now look for a motion. Mr. Hardcastle, Mr. Dickey, Mr. Hardcastle, you tied. Who'd like to do it?
I'll let Mr. Hardcastle go.
Well, that's kind of you, Mr. Dickey. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Having undertaken my site visit, having reviewed the written staff report, having heard the comments from the agent and the dialogue here, I will put forward a motion of approval on this application. And having evaluated the application and heard the staff comments, I concur that the requested variance does conform to the 4 tests. And while there are some reservations around the availability of parking for an additional vehicle, the reality is that there will still be 2 parking spaces provided on site, and the site is well serviced by transit. So I do not believe that the impacts will be significant, and there will be alternatives to be accommodated and addressed through matters like lease arrangements. Accordingly, I will put forward that motion of approval subject to the singular condition that the approval will expire within 2 years of the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Any discussion on the motion to approve? I see none. All those in favor of the motion to approve? It's you and Mr. Hardcastle. All those opposed? Mr. Dickey is opposed. I've expressed my reservations on this application, but I do not believe in voting to cause a tie, so I will support the motion to approve. So your application has been approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We'll now move to CAV 117 at 55 West Street. Anyone who wishes to speak to this application, you can call in at 905-815-6095. It's 905-815-6095. You're the agent. If you could raise your hand and the Secretary Treasurer will let you in.
I've promoted Roshan into the meeting.
Good evening. If we can get your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and fellow committee members. My name is Roshan Durganasampiter, and I'm a planner at Design Plan Services located at 900 The East Mall, Suite 300. We have been retained by the owners at 55 West Street to present this application today, which is CAV A117-2023.
You can proceed with your presentation, please.
Thank you. Before getting into the variances, I have reviewed the staff report issued for this application, and planning staff have indicated that they have no concerns with the proposal, and all other commenting agencies have expressed no concerns or objections. I'll now discuss the variances. Variance 1 pertains to attached private garage. The proposed attached private garage will project not more than 2.82 meters from the face of the longest portion of the main wall, whereas a bylaw permits a maximum projection of 1.5 meters. As shown on the photo study submitted to the committee, there are a number of dwellings which appear to have similar or larger garage projections, such as 58 West Street, 71 West Street, 74 West Street, 78 West Street, and 79 West Street. Considering this, the proposal will be keeping in with the existing character and built form of the neighborhood and further contemplates what the bylaw permits. Furthermore, the proposed garage projection of 2.82 meters will allow the dwelling to have more livable space. As per the site plan and first floor plan, the veranda and the proposed stairs will generally be aligned with the front wall of the proposed garage. The projection.
Sorry, can I just interrupt? Sorry.
No
I wonder if
worries.
we can get staff to advance the presentation to the actual site plan being proposed. Great, thank you.
The projection from the furthest point of the veranda to the garage is 0.9 meters. Hence, from a visual perspective, the veranda will mitigate the proposed massing and the garage will not become a visually dominant feature of the dwelling. It should also be noted that the garage projection is not projected further from the main wall of the adjacent dwellings and will generally be aligned. So variance 2 pertains to the front yard. We have submitted a front yard graphic if committee can. So the required minimum front yard is a yard legally existing on the effective date of this bylaw, less 1 meter. The existing front yard is 14.10 meters. As such, the required minimum front yard is 13.10 meters. Whereas the proposed front yard is 8.32 meters. As illustrated on the front yard graphic submitted to the committee, the red line indicates the proposed setback and the black line illustrates the existing setback. As you can see, the proposed dwelling will be located closer to the street rather than the existing dwelling, which will create a better alignment with the neighboring properties on the east side of West Street. Based on the justification provided, I am of the opinion that this proposal fits in with the existing and planned context of the neighborhood, is consistent with the redevelopment trends along West Street and the broader neighborhood. Further, the proposal conforms to official plan policy 11.1.9, which evaluates development in stable residential neighborhoods and speaks to maintaining and protecting the existing character. For these reasons, I believe this application represents good planning and meets the 4 tests under section 45, subsection 1 of the Planning Act. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Committee members, any questions for the applicant? See none. Madam Secretary Treasurer, we had a request from Lorraine Quast to speak tonight.
Yes, she's just joining the meeting now.
Good evening, Ms. Quast. If we can get your name and address, please. Yeah. Have to unmute yourself.
It's Lorraine Quast. I live at 3061 Seneca Drive in Oakville.
Questions or concerns, please share them with the committee.
Yes, I object to this major variance as it will result in the destruction of the 2 towering mature trees which are in front of the property, as it will destroy the root system. The town of Oakville has stated that it's committed to preserving and enhancing its tree canopy, and it recognizes the importance of trees to the ecology, aesthetics, culture, and heritage of the town. Trees on town lands are to be removed only to safeguard public safety, and they are not to be removed for reasons for aesthetics or nuisance or at the whim of a homeowner. This policy recognizes the importance of the tree canopy and the environmental, economic, and social benefits of urban forests to communities. It's with this in mind that I object to the variance. Allowing construction to take place would kill the root systems of these trees. The property sits in a heritage neighborhood, which is defined by the majestic towering trees which line the streets of West Street and Seneca Drive. The reason people move to this area is because of these mature trees. They are beloved by the neighborhood. The 2 massive trees in front of this property are more than 100 feet high, and they are even wider. They are 2 of the widest, tallest trees in the whole area. They have a diameter of just short of 12 feet. Their canopy extends across the road. Among other benefits, they provide shade, energy savings, erosion control, noise buffering, stormwater attenuation, wildlife habitat, and they improve air quality through the removal of the pollutants. They contribute to the quality of my neighborhood and the town in general and help to mitigate the effects of climate change. Tree removal and injury is regulated in order to prevent the unnecessary loss of these public benefits. In order to maintain the structural integrity of the anchor roots of these trees, this application must be rejected. There is no way to dig the foundation for this house if the application is approved without severing the anchor roots of both trees. We live in a time of climate crisis, and more than ever, we're being called to protect trees at all. These trees are part of our valuable arboreal canopy, and without them, we'd just be another street. I walk past these trees twice a day. They are the grand old ladies of our heritage. They are standing well over 100 feet tall. There are branches extend double that. I see these trees from my house 2 blocks away. These 2 streets in Bronte, West and Seneca, are 2 of the most appealing, attractive, and compelling streets on which to walk because of these trees. We've already lost a few. We can't afford to lose another. I think it's your duty to make a reasonable decision which involves protecting these existing trees. I'm not a certified arborist, but I know a lot about trees. There are a few broad statements about root extent, which have led to significant changes in how professionals view and manage the below ground portion of trees. 1, trees' root systems extend 2 to 3 times out of the drip line. 2, almost 95% of the tree roots are at the top top 18 inches of soil. 3, the roots extend out about 1.5 times the height of the tree. And 4, more than 60% of the absorbing root system is beyond the drip line. These tree roots may extend up to 5 times the length of its branches. This is the tree root zone, a broad, shallow, vulnerable mass of roots. This committee should strive to make decisions that preserve our existing mature trees and increase tree canopy coverage, not reduce it. Please recognize the natural heritage system and the values they provide. The impact of this decision will have huge consequences for the character of our street and for the natural ecosystem. And I implore you to make a decision based on an obligation to protect long-lived native and large shade trees, and to be assertive when it comes to climate change and how the destruction of these trees will impact climate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Quast. I will ask the applicant to explain what trees, if any, are being removed, but I do have to point out that the Committee of Adjustment not responsible for tree bylaw. It's a separate process the applicant will have to go through and would have to get a permit before it was able to remove or injure trees. But we could ask the applicant if you could speak to the comments you heard from the neighbor, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, the existing driveway will remain and no trees will be damaged. And it is our understanding that they will be protected. I am not an arborist. However, the existing tree is to remain and the existing driveway is to remain as well. Thank you.
Okay. Would it be possible for staff to put back the site plan for a minute so we can visually see what the applicant just spoke about? So it looks like the driveway is going towards one of the trees. Is it going to swing between them?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the existing driveway, the entrance is actually to the north side of the tree. And that entrance will remain and will not be expanded.
Okay, so we see that note in the bottom there. Okay. Committee members, any questions for the neighbor or the applicant? I see none. Madam Secretary Treasurer, is anyone else called in to speak to this application?
I see no one at this time.
Okay. Mr. Hardcastle?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is a question for staff. Would modifications to a driveway exclusive of other works require a permit from the town? So if there were modifications proposed at a future date and time dealing with the element of the driveway within the right-of-way, would that require a permit or some kind of approval from the town?
Through you, Chair, to Committee Member Hardcastle, that is correct. Any sort of that existing driveway that you see on the site plan that's within the town's right of way, any work on that would require a permit and the establishment of securities and you know the erection of tree protection fencing as well.
And as a follow-up, Mr. Chairman, again to staff, would that process refer to matters such as the building permit or committee approval process as they're reviewing it to ensure that they're considering previous decisions or matters of consideration, or matters that were considered, I should say.
Through chair to committee member Hardcastle, that process is operated and sort of owned by development engineering, who is also responsible for the establishment of tree protection fencing and the inspection of that tree protection fencing. So, you know, without committing to what an urban forester might look at, they will be looking at this. Should a driveway permit come in, they're going to be looped in, and the requirements of the town's street tree or the town tree protection bylaw would have to be upheld.
Any further questions? Mr. Dickey.
Here. To the town planner, just when this and when and if this owner applies for a building permit, would he need or could he need to supply an arborist report at that point in time, or is that something that only happens at this level of process?
Through chair to committee member Dickey, as part of the building permit process, I can't say for certain whether or not an arborist report would be required. Should they be doing work within that sort of town-owned right-of-way, for sure, an arborist report would be required, but I cannot say for certain whether one would be required. I don't have enough information on the building permit issuance process.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? I see none. Just checking again, Madam Secretary Treasurer. No one else has called in.
There's no one at this time.
Okay, thank you. And we'll just close discussion and looking for a motion. Mr. Dickey.
Based on my review of the owner's application, the site plan, and the building elevations, and my site visit, together with the presentation by the owner's agent, and having regard, or at least taking into account, comments made by the neighbor about the trees, it is my opinion, however, that this variance meets the four tests of the Planning Act, and I would like to make a motion that the application be approved. Oh, subject to, sorry. Subject to the condition that the dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the submitted site plan dated June 12th, 2023, and the elevation drawing dated June 12th, 2023, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision. Building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Thank you, Mr. Dickey. And I'll just point out for the benefit of the neighbor that Mr. Dickey made the approval conditional general accordance with the site plan being provided, and the site plan that was shown on the screen specifically showed that the existing driveway entrance was to remain around the tree, and if that were to change and the applicant were to attempt to take the tree down, they would have to go through likely this process again and the tree bylaw process. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve? That is unanimous. Your application has been approved, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and fellow committee members. Have a good evening.
You too. We will move to CAV A120 2023 1147 Carla Court. Anyone wishing to speak to this application, please call in at 905 815-6095. And I see we have the agent with us. You could unmute yourself and provide us with your
evening,
name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Chairman and the member of committee. My name is Bak Ding. I am the agent for the owner at the address 1147 Kala Court. And the application number is CAVA 1202023.
Do you have a presentation?
So we asking for the lot coverage to be 20. Let me see. Give me a second, sorry. We are asking for the lot coverage to be 28 point, I believe 28.1%. The maximum allowed is 25%, but because of the existing cabana and the covered porch, the proposed alteration to the rear of the house and the front porch is not able to comply with the zoning.
That's the end of your presentation, sir?
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you. Any members, any questions for the applicant? See none. Madam Secretary Treasurer, has anyone called in to speak to this application?
I see no one at this time.
We will close discussion on this matter and I will entertain a motion. Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Having undertaken my site visit, having reviewed the materials, including the written staff report, and having heard the presentation from the applicant, I'm satisfied that the requested variances conform to the four tests of the Act. These are modest additions to the front and rear, sensitively incorporating the design of the building and that are consistent with the character of the area. So I would make the motion subject to conditions, those being that the proposed front porch and rear addition be constructed in general accordance with the site plan and elevation drawings submitted for August 23rd, 2023 Committee of Adjustment meeting, and that the approval will expire within 2 years of the date of the decision if a permit has not been issued. I would note that there were no members of the public present with respect to this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous. Your application has been approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening.
Good evening. EAV A121-2023 at 76 Masterman Crescent. Anyone wishing?
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Can I excuse for 2 minutes? Be right back.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you.
Madam Secretary Treasurer, should we wait for Ms. Yu or continue with quorum?
Should we give her, she said 2 minutes?
2 minutes.
And I'll move the agent into the meeting. If the agent for this application would like to raise their hand and I can move them into the meeting for 76 Masterman, thank you. It'll just be a moment.
And anyone wishing to speak to the application, you can call in at 905-815-6095. Yu is back.
Thank you.
Mr. Singh is with us now. If you could unmute yourself, preferably turn on your camera, and give us your name and address for the record and proceed with your presentation, please. Good evening.
Hi, good evening all. My name is Raman Kumar. I'm from MEM Engineering on the behalf of Harjinder Singh. And we are requesting variance for, we are proposing landing with the steps to new proposed door. And bylaw requires 0.6 meter, but we are requesting the minimum distance of 0.34 meter from the interior lot line. And this will be a wood deck and it will be above grade.
Okay, thank you, sir. Committee members, do you have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Dickey.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Right now, there's quite a large air conditioner on that side of the house. I assume that's going to be moved somewhere else because that's where almost where the new door will be. Is that correct?
Yeah, that will be moved at a rear yard or any other appropriate location.
Okay. And there's going to be a new window into the basement, referred to as, sorry, it's an egress window. How far out from the wall will that window well project?
From the wall, that will be 22 inches from the wall.
That can... Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This question's actually of staff. I noted in reviewing the staff report that the fire department had indicated that the proposal would create negative impacts on standard firefighting operations, but I don't really see that addressed in the staff report. I'm wondering if you'd hazard or provide some additional clarity around that comment and how that would factor in to your decision making or your recommendations, I should say.
Certainly, through you, Chair, to Committee Member Hardcastle. I was included in staff's the fire department's comments regarding access impeding, to the rear yard. I inquired further into that, and the response I received was that it was less focused with the landing and more about the window well. And the variance here that is of subject is the landing itself. I will note that in my review of the application, there are risers or steps on both sides proceeding up to the landing for the entryway. So in my opinion, that access and the impedance, the impededness, I guess, for lack of a better word, is sort of mitigated because we have risers going up one side and down another. Now, if it were a hard banister, that might create, some real impacts to the standard firefighting process. And in my opinion, that is sort of a really important piece when I was looking at the actual accessibility to the rear yard and I do note that fire department noted that they were standard firefighting practices, so there might be a level of creativity that needs to be taken, but I think it's mitigated with the fact that we have risers up one side and down another.
Thank you.
I'll just add, Mr. Hardcastle, I noted that comment, and I also recall previous applications similar to this that specifically indicated that there were no concerns because there were stairs on both sides. Are there any other questions for the applicant? Mr. Dickey.
Yeah, I'm just looking on the window well situation. I don't really see, I can see where the window is on one of the plans called the main floor plan, but I don't see an outline of the window well that comes out to 21 inches that we were just told. Is there another plan that I haven't seen that I don't seem to be on this? In other words, if we approve a site plan that doesn't show the wind, if we're concerned about the window well, and we approve a site plan that doesn't show it, aren't we, should we be doing that? I mean, but really I'm looking to say, is there, in the stuff, the information submitted, is there a drawing that shows that 21-inch window well? I guess I'm asking the agent that unless the town planner knows.
So like a window well, egress window is like, it's a standard 22 inches window well. Basically, even if it is not in the minor variance, usually within the 1.2 meter side yard, we propose window well for other applications as well. So 22 inches for egress is a pretty standard practice. And usually not in minor variance, usually in building permit, that is approved. So that's why it's like and also it's a standard window well. So we, even if committee needs, we can make any other window egress, or you guys, like, you can put a note like 22 inches, maximum 22 inches window well should be on the, for the building permit.
Okay.
And it's 22 inches just to make sure, because like a minimum egress window requirement is 22 inches window well. So that will be helpful for us to get building permit approval.
Okay. And for the town planner, there would, the 22 inches doesn't need a variance or anything. That's within the acceptable, that would comply with the zoning bylaw. I assume the zoning bylaw addresses that matter.
Through Chair to Committee Member Dickey, I don't know the zoning regulation for window wells, but I will know that they're not included on this site plan. So if a variance for a window well is needed after today, then they will need a minor variance on top of that, unless it complies. But again, I do not know the section of the bylaw that regulates that.
Thank you.
And I'll just add, Mr. Dickey, staff haven't identified a further variance, but as we deal with regularly, a full zoning review is not done until a building permit application is made and reviewed. And as Mr. Westerhoff has indicated, if at the time of building permit anything is found not to comply, the applicant would have to come back. Ms. Yu?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for the applicant. So I have noticed like the distance between the two properties, between the two buildings are actually very tight. So, and also I see an entrance, well, a gate to the backyard. I just want to know if you propose to add a deck on the side, in the side yard, will that definitely will impact your access to the backyard and the front yard. Did you get a chance to talk with your neighbor about the accessibility to that gate? If you, after you build the deck, do they have concerns?
Actually, I'm not sure about that, because I am the applicant of this, and homeowner might discuss with that, because definitely neighbors should receive, like notices from the minor variance. I think usually they got letters, right? Like this committee of adjustment is going on, and also they put a sign in front of their property. So if they might have any concern, so might be they already discussed, or they can come to committee of adjustment hearing to join and give their show their concern. And also like this variance is within the property and it's not below grade, so there will be no issue for the swelling and permeable landscaping as well. So I'm not pretty sure like if this was discussed with the neighbor or not, but definitely we put sign in front of the house. So if they see that, then if they have any concern, they could come here. And also I want to add, like zoning bylaw requirement is like 0.6 meter from the property line. And for the window well, like window well will be 22 inches, so that will be complied already. And also if like anything egress window need more window well as per city, we will change the location in building permit.
So further to that, we'll just check with Secretary Treasurer, make sure nobody has called in the neighbors to speak to this application.
There's no one at this time.
Okay. And then nobody's called in, seeing no further questions, we'll close the discussion and I'll look for a motion, please. Mr. Dickey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, I'm a little concerned about what the fire department's access to this property. And I tell you, if it wasn't for the fact that there was already that air conditioner in the side yard, indicating that in order for the owner to actually get his lawnmower back there, he has to trespass on the side yard of the adjacent owner. The adjacent owner hasn't shown up and made any comment there, so I'm really in an odd spot. But regardless, I reviewed it, and those were my concerns. And having regard to the site plans and the building elevations of my site visit, I do still think that the variance complies with the 4 tests of the Planning Act, and therefore I will make a motion for approval based upon the conditions that the entrance be constructed in general accordance with the submitted plan dated, I guess that's June 8th, 2023. Could be August 6th. I'm terrible at those numbers. And the elevation drawings dated the same date, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Thank you, Mr. Dickey. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve? That is unanimous. Your application has been approved, sir.
Thank you so much. Have a good one, sir, everyone.
Have a good evening.
You too. Thanks.
To CAV A55 2023, which was deferred from May 3rd at 252 Tweedsdale Crescent. The applicants in the meeting, if they can raise their hands, Secretary Treasurer will let you in.
Okay, I've moved the applicant Jeremy Zegers into the meeting. However, I just would like to note that the planner, Mr. Riaz, would just like to speak to this item before we start.
Okay. Well, good evening, Mr. Riaz.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and the committee. I would like to request that condition number 3 be modified to that the proposed driveway be constructed in general accordance with a driveway permit. Thank you so much.
And just can you explain the reason? Do you expect that through the permit process there could be a modification?
Yes, there is a possibility, as there are town trees adjacent to the driveway proposed, so there's a possibility that it can change.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Zegers' presentation, if he could consider that and advise us if there's any concern with respect to the requested change in the condition should the application be approved. Good evening, sir. If we get your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Jeremy Zegers, 5046 Wellington Road, 125, Erin, Ontario, acting as the agent for the owner at 252 Tweedsdale.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Yeah, so just give a brief summary of what we're proposing here. Is we're zoning bylaw permits a maximum of 25% lot coverage. We're requesting 28% to permit a covered porch on the rear of the single family dwelling, as well as increased area of the inside the attached garage from 45 square meters to 50.25 square meters, just in order to be able to park 2 vehicles and have some storage for bicycles, garbage recycling, etc. And with respect to the condition of a driveway permit being added, I don't feel we have any concern with that. Maybe can elaborate a little bit on that process so we understand that, but I don't see that us having an issue going down that pathway.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Riaz, perhaps could you provide any additional information as to what that process would entail for the applicant?
Through you, Chair, the driveway permit is required for any new driveway. That is, from what I understand, that is within the public right of way. And in this case, there will be a driveway permit required because this is a new driveway, and the condition has been added just to ensure or notify the applicant there are 2 adjacent trees. I believe there's 2 adjacent town trees that may be impacted, and because of that, at the time of the driveway permit, our urban forestry staff will take a look at those and review those in more detail and address the applicant will have get a chance to address any concerns if the urban forestry staff indicates any.
Thank you. Committee members, are there any questions for the applicant or staff? I see none. Madam Secretary Treasurer, has anyone called in to speak to this application?
There's no one at this time.
And I will close the discussion and look for a motion. It's you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Having reviewed the application materials along with the staff report, having conducted the site visits and listened to the presentation by the applicant, I'm satisfied with the proposal, and I would like to move the motion forward to approve this proposal, subject to 3 conditions. Number 1, the proposed 2-story dwelling will be constructed in general accordance with the site plan dated March 16, 2023, and the elevation drawings dated February 15, 2023 as submitted. The approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision of if a building permit and driveway permit have not been issued for the proposed construction. Number 3, the proposed driveway will be constructed in general accordance with the driveway permit as submitted. Thank you.
I don't think you need to add as submitted to the end of that.
Thank you.
According to the driveway permit, and you noted that there's nobody from the community was present to speak to the application. Is there any discussion on that motion to approve? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous. Your application has been approved, sir.
Thank you, committee and Mr. Chair.
Have a good evening.
You as well.
Another deferral, CAVA 011-2023, deferred from February 22nd at 103 North Forester Park Drive. And I would note that we have 5 letters of support, which I think is a nice change from the letters of concern on the original application. Letters of support from Colin Jennings, Jane Hooper, Anne Redice, Teresa Jalasanin, and Bruce Miller. I see Mr. Giordano. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Peter Giordano, David Small Designs, 1405 Cornwall Road, Unit 4 in Oakville.
Thank you. And proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. I've provided the committee with the presentation slides that are displayed on the screen right now. If I could ask to advance it to slide number 3, please. Right there. Okay, thank you. So our clients have canvassed the neighborhood, report that the comments received were very supportive and positive. We have 5 letters of support on file, including the neighbors on both sides and just behind directly across the road, as you can see on this plan. Can I ask that you advance to slide number 7, please? We requested a deferral on the 22nd of February when the planner assigned to this application asked that we modify and reduce the massing on the rear of the property, including the removal of the masonry flue extending up above the covered porch. It currently extends the amount that was required by code for a wood burning fireplace unit. We've changed that. We've removed the chimney and we've changed the fireplace unit to a direct vent gas fireplace. We've lowered the massing in the back, as you could see in the red line. So the 3D is what was there originally. We've modified that to address the planning comments. By making these revisions, we've reduced the overall massing as requested by the planner. We've eliminated our coverage variance, so we're left with 1 variance, and that's for FSI. Our permitted RFA for that, permitted RFA is 42%. We are asking for 45% to achieve the family space requirements for the property. I would note that the staff reports are all in support of the application, and we would conclude that we believe our application to be minor in variance and pass the 4 tests of Section 45 of the Planning Act.
Thank you. Committee members, any questions for the applicant or staff? I see none. Madam Secretary Treasurer, has anyone called in to speak to this application?
There's no one at this time.
Okay, thank you. So we will close discussion and I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Having undertaken my site visit, having reviewed the materials, including the written staff report, having heard the words from Mr. Giordano, having a problem this evening. I am satisfied that the requested variances conform to the 4 tests of the Act. I'll put forward a motion of approval, subject to 2 conditions, those being that the dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the submitted site plan dated June 13th, 2023, and elevations dated May 11th, 2023, and that the approval will expire within 2 years of the date of the decision. Good work working with the neighbors in town to resolve the issues in this.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there any discussion on that motion to approve? All those in favor of the motion? That is unanimous. Your application has been approved.
Wonderful. Have a great evening.
You too. Final application for tonight, CAVA 123-2022, deferred from April at 518 Taplow Crescent. Good evening, sir. If we can unmute yourself, put your camera on, provide us with your name and address, please.
Evening, committee members. My name is Matthew Rebo, agent for Perspective Views, representing the owner, Brian. And this is for the address 518 Tahoe Crescent, application number CAVA 123-2022. And we have read the staff report. We agree. We did add a couple comments in regards to the suggested missed variance. Basically, I've submitted a letter for presentation today. If staff haven't had a chance to review it, I can quickly present it. Otherwise, again, we do have staff support, and I'm here to answer any questions. So please direct me on as to whether or not you require my presentation.
So you indicated you provided some recent information. Is that what's on the screen?
Well, this is the drawing set. If we can go to the first couple pages of this document, there is a letter. And basically, we are just addressing what's being proposed and what was suggested in the staff report. So I'll quickly skim through. Basically, we have, it was just, so first, in addition to, we have our irregular shaped lot. Careful consideration was made to design the proposed footprint to basically fit within most of the setback requirements. We've actually deferred and revised the proposed drawings so that they are in more conforming with the municipal bylaws. And we have been able to eliminate most of the required variances. Again, I want to highlight, if you go to page 2, there is a suggested variance for the rear yard setback. In making the revisions, it was unintentional that we encroached into the rear required 7.5 meter setback. And so we just want to make it clear that our intention was not to do this, that we do not require a variance, as we will be revising to make sure that we comply. In addition to that comment, it actually reduces the overall square footage that we are, coverage that we are proposing, making the variance request even less than what we were asking for. All that said, we will be, we do not require an additional variance as I guess highlighted, or as a possible variance. We will make sure that we revise the drawings so that we comply at the time of building permit submission. The last page, or sorry, the third page of this letter is just a supporting argument that there are very mature trees, and they are in the surrounding properties, but that was also consideration in the footprint of the proposed dwelling to again ensure that we are in conforming with the general intent of the zoning bylaw, and we feel that we meet the 4 tests. Again, if there are any questions, I'm here to answer.
Yes, so I think we'll go to staff first and ask if first they've previously seen the proposals of the applicant suggesting a revision, and whether they feel that revision would be minor enough if committee approved to make it conditional on site plan elevations to the satisfaction of the director.
For you, Chair, the difference in variance is about 0.08 meters, which staff considers to be minor, and if there are revisions made to comply, staff would not have any concerns.
Thank you. Any members or any questions for the applicant or staff? Mr. Dickey?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. With regard to this missed rear variance, I just see it seems to be just at the corner of your covered porch.
Correct.
So is your, can we say revised plan, you're just gonna reduce the depth of the report? I mean, of the porch, you're not gonna play around with the building positioning
That's
on the line?
correct.
Okay.
You're
Okay,
correct.
Thank you. That's all, thank you.
Any other questions? Madam Secretary Treasurer, has anybody called in to speak to this application?
There's no one at this time.
Okay. Committee, you've heard the applicant and staff. It looks like there's going to need to be a minor revision to the drawings if you choose to approve. I would suggest we modify the conditions accordingly, but I will leave it to whoever wants to make the motion. Mr. Dickey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Based on my review of the owner's application, the site plans and the comments today about the rear yard setback, together with the building elevations in my site visit, it's my opinion that the application meets 4 tests of the Planning Act. Therefore, I make a motion that the application be approved, subject to the condition that proposed 2-story dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the site plan dated July 4th, 2023, and the elevation dated June 26, 2023 as submitted, excepting for an adjustment to the rear covered porch such that the property complies with the rear yard setback, and also subject to condition that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit is not being issued for the proposed construction.
Mr. Dickey, can I make a friendly amendment?
Yes, certainly. I was going to
subject to minor adjustment to the rear cover porch to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning.
Okay. Yes.
And I'm sure I also heard you say that you recognize that there were no members of the public present to speak to this application.
Thank you for adding that.
Sorry, if someone could read that condition out in full so I can get it, how it's supposed to read? Because I know that when Mr. Member Dickey was reading it, it was quite long and involved, and then Member Tulowski made a change, so I just want to make sure I get it correct. So if someone could just read out the condition as you'd like it to read on the decision, that would be great.
Oh, I did that off the top of my head there. Didn't write it down. Can you read what you have?
I don't have anything because it was,
Oh,
you were
I see,
saying
okay.
a lot of work. I've got, so I guess you're changing it after that the proposed 2-story dwelling be constructed in general accordance. And then I'm not sure what you want after that.
So if I can.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Mr. Dickey left the condition as worded, but then he added, with the exception of a minor revision to the rear covered porch, and then I added to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning. Alternatively, you could just make.
No, that's okay. I'm writing away here.
Elevations to the satisfaction of Director of Planning and make it simple.
Okay, so I've already written it all down, so I just want to read it back. That the proposed 2-story dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the site plan dated July 4th, 2023, and elevation drawings dated June 26, 2023, with the exception of the rear covered porch to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning Services. Is that correct?
Just with the exception of the adjustment or revision to the rear covered porch.
Okay, what word would you like? Okay, with the exception of the revision
Of
to.
a revision to the rear covered porch.
Sorry, I didn't.
The exception of a revision to the rear covered porch.
Okay, with the exception of a revision to the rear covered porch to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning.
Mr. Dickey, you're good with that?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bowe, I'm sure you don't have an issue with that?
Not at all.
Okay, so the motion is to approve, subject to the two conditions as just read out. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion to approve? It's you. Thank you. That's unanimous. Your application is approved.
Thank you, council members, and have a great evening.
You too. Okay, that's it for the applications. We have minutes of August 9th to be confirmed. Mr. Hardcastle, and motion to adjourn. Mr. Hardcastle. We're adjourned at 8:34.